Hi everyone, this is Cole. Today we're going to be talking about a question that every single person asks eventually, which is, what GPA do I actually need to get into a top US college? And perhaps the harder question, what if my GPA isn't perfect? Am I out of the game entirely? Today I'm going to very quickly break down exactly how your high school GPA will impact your college applications, and maybe more importantly, what you can do to strengthen your admissions profile even if your GPA is lower than you'd hoped. It's very important to keep in mind that GPA expectations for top universities are technically unspoken and unofficial. So the ranks that I'm about to give, they're averages, not exactly cutoffs, but here's the realistic benchmarks. Top 5 schools, think Harvard, Stanford, MIT. The average unweighted GPA is a 3.9 to a 4.0. Most admitted students are at the very top of their class. Straight A's, rigorous coursework. Top 10 schools is a similar range, 3.9, maybe 3.8 to a 4.0 unweighted. These schools still expect near perfect grades, a challenging course load, AP or IB courses, ultimately very similar to top 5 schools. In top 20 schools, the average GPA generally will dip down slightly, maybe to a 3.7, but a 4.0 is still very realistic here. Strong grades are still essential, but there is some more room for flexibility. Finally, in top 30 schools, the average falls as low as about a 3.6, but they're still very highly competitive with simply a little bit more room for variation. Now, here's the key takeaway. Context does matter. Different high schools will have slightly different GPA scales, so a 3.8 with multiple AP courses will carry much more weight than a 4.0 with all regular courses. This is why in previous videos and every time I talk to my students, I say try to take as many weighted courses as possible to boost the overall strength of your GPA, even if the number might be a 3.8 with multiple weighted courses. That looks much more impressive to college admissions boards. Of course, what happens if your GPA simply isn't in these ranges? Does that mean that you should give up on your dream school? And I'll be somewhat optimistic here, but that is not the case. The truth is that U.S. colleges practice something called holistic admissions. This means they look at the whole student, not just a single number. So, if your GPA is lower than you'd like, there are some ways to compensate for it. First would be very strong standardized test scores. A very high SAT or ACT score can help balance out a lower GPA. You can think of it as evidence that you do have academic ability, even if your transcript doesn't fully show it. Another strategy that students will focus in on is constant progress on their transcript. For example, if during your freshman year you have a 3.0 GPA and you have a 3.4 during your sophomore year and a 3.6 during your junior year and a 4.0 senior year, your final GPA is a 3.5, which is, technically speaking, out of the range of most top universities. Yet at the same time, your admissions officers will see a constant trend towards better and better scores. In other words, you've made constant progress over the course of your time in high school, and the trajectory that you're on is very definitively upward. A third way that people will combat a lower GPA is by having outstanding extracurriculars. Think leadership roles, unique projects, community service, anything that shows admissions boards that who you are beyond the classroom is a very smart and capable person. Oftentimes, athletics is also grouped into this category. A fourth way that people will combat a lower GPA is by using your personal statement to tell your personal story. Maybe you faced some challenges or discovered a passion in high school. You want this story to take prominence in the essay and show that your GPA is a meaningful factor in your life, but in reality, this story of your life is taking precedence. What that means is the strength of your character and the strength of your application shouldn't ride on the number of your GPA, but on whatever story is taking place within this essay. Finally, people will oftentimes turn to very strong letters of recommendation to show that although their GPA isn't as high, they still are a very capable student. Teachers who know you well can speak to your growth, your work ethic, and your character, things that a transcript can't really capture. Finally, remember this. GPA is important, but it's not everything. Top colleges are building a diverse class of students with different strengths and backgrounds and perspectives. A 3.7 with passion, leadership, and a clear sense of purpose oftentimes will beat a 4.0 with no story to tell. To summarize, keep in mind that top 5 to top 30 schools expect a very high GPA. The closer to a 4.0, the better. But context and rigor do matter. If your GPA is lower, you can compensate with strong test scores on the SAT or the ACT, showing constant progress across each individual year and each individual class, strong extracurricular activities, a very good personal statement, and strong letters of recommendation from your recommenders. Don't underestimate the power of growth and storytelling in the application process. You can follow along for more insights into the world of education if this has been helpful to you. Good luck and study hard.